Hi guys, it's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. Thank you, Fozzie, for calling and waking me up. Thank you, thank you. Do you know that everybody in my house is awake right now? Yep, they're all awake. Not one of them could say, "Hey, Mom, wake up. Your alarm clock's going off." Well, my son's not home, but that's besides the point. He should have known. He should have called me. He should have called me from Texas. He's coming back Sunday. Unless the weather doesn't let him. I don't know. So, this is about all of us. All of us. Well, most of us. Okay, some of us. Some of us feel that we make the worst choices when it comes to partners. Some of us feel that, our partner choices are just the worst ever. It's like, show me the worst person I could possibly choose, and that's who I choose. And this video is here to show you that that's not true. We could get worse if we tried. And we still have an opportunity because he's probably single right now. So, here we go.
Position in this file. We have the names of our participants, please. Good morning, Nicole Wood, lawyer guardian ad litem.
Ms. Saja Thomas, counsel for the department.
Christy Brinker, foster care worker.
Michael Brooks, I represent Mr. Dustin King.
Mr. McFarland.
Michael McFarland, representing mother. Please introduce yourself.
Kirsten Miller, the mother. Okay. All right, Ms. Underwood, I look forward to your report.
Sure, I was able to meet with all of the children. I intended to meet the youngest three in person. However, they've been very sick this week, so it was not appropriate for me to go in person.
Okay. So, guardian ad litem. I think this is the person who has the children now. I don't know if she's foster care or not. And she's for the state. We can't see Mr. Brooks right now. We'll see him in a little bit. We can't see the dad. We saw his head here for a second. But I think all the children are with her. I think the oldest is 5. I think. And it's a little confusing. I think she has 3 of them. The oldest being 5. However, I think there's another child somewhere. And I don't know if it's mom or dad's. Or both, but I don't think it's both. I think it's either mom or dad's that we're going to hear about in a little bit too. And there's a very, very hot judge sitting on the bench.
However, I did have a Zoom call with them for an extended period of time. They all seem to be doing well considering the fact that they're sick, but there's thriving in a routine and in a home that's got all of their basic needs met.
Wait till you hear what he says, though. Wait till you hear it. It's so funny.
They seem to have a good bond with their caregiver, and I did notice some speech delays just from talking to them, and I believe that was addressed in the court report and will likely be looked into as we move through this case. I had a nice conversation with Dustin Jr. this morning. He woke up with a big smile on his face and seems to be adjusting well. I know that was a bit of a traumatic removal for the children, but he seems to be doing very well where he's at. He's looking forward to going back to school in person.
Mr. Brooks is the attorney for the father, and he's special. That's the best I could put.
He's adjusting to being back in his home with his mom and his other siblings. And again, he's just really excited for Christmas. He talked to me about how he has his student morning routine that he's doing, and he just seems to be really well adjusted, and he wouldn't stop smiling when I talked to him, so that was good to see. I believe that they are in the least restrictive environments and should continue their placements.
Here, testimony this morning, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you. And I'll call Ms. Brinker to give her report.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good morning, Ms. Brinker. Today you have prepared and filed a court report for the initial disposition, which includes the initial foster care report, 2 case service plans, one for Ms. Miller and one for Mr. King, and then an agreement or the expectations for parenting time. Is there anything else that you've circulated since you filed that report?
No.
And are there any updates or modifications that you're aware of that need to be made to that report or the attachments?
I will be changing the request for visitation, but we can probably cover that maybe later with testimony, or I didn't know if you wanted to go through that now or.
Okay, we can address it later if that's the only update. Okay, thank you. Okay, today we are only here for, well, the report, I guess, relates only to the initial disposition for Ms. Miller. At this time, what is the children's permanency goal?
The permanency goal currently is reunification.
And what are the current barriers to the children being reunified with their mother?
Lack of housing, probably some parenting. None of the services have been started yet. Ms. Miller did start and go get an assessment for a mental health evaluation and has started doing that in counseling, but services have just started within this case.
So she has taken on some voluntary services to date.
Correct.
Okay. I know in the report there are mentions of referrals being made. Can you just briefly highlight what services referrals still need to be made for?
I believe that my supervisor was actually handling the referrals, and I think that all of the referrals noted in the report still need to be made, which would be the trauma assessments for the kids and the psychological evaluation for Ms. Miller.
Okay. As relates to the case service plan, did you have an opportunity to meet with Ms. Miller to develop that case service plan?
Yes, we had an FTM on December 6th, and we went over the case service plan as well as the visitation plan, and she was in agreement and signed off on both.
And do you believe that the case service plan would adequately address the conditions that cause the children to come into care?
I do.
What is the current parenting time schedule for Ms. Miller?
Yeah, so currently she visits with the children 2 hours a week, twice a week at our office for 1 hour visits.
Okay, and it's supervised by Fostering Solutions then?
Correct, yes.
All right, guys, listen to these visits. Listen to how these visits go.
Okay. Can you, I know this is in your report, so I'm sorry for asking you to be redundant here, but can you just highlight and verbalize what some of the concerns for parenting time with Ms. Miller are?
The kids, it's really it's hard to put into words, their behaviors. They definitely have a hard time adjusting, especially Lincoln has a really hard time. So I think that, coming to a new place, our office, they are wild, run through our office. They don't listen to their mom. They don't listen to our staff. Our staff has been spit on, kicked. They run through our building. They have attempted to run into the parking lot. It's just chaos, for lack of a better word. Miss Miller could benefit from parenting, some more parenting classes to help to control her children. A lot of times she kind of just sits back and doesn't address the behaviors as they're going on. And lets our staff kind of handle it. So that's in a nutshell.
And you mentioned earlier in your testimony that you would be changing your request for parenting time. Is that regarding Miss Miller?
Well, we're just kind of going to change the structure, I think, just to lessen the trauma for the kids. She did attend a medical appointment, as Ms. Underwood had stated. The kids have been really sick this week, and they've been to the doctor's twice this week.
Guys, American Courts is here, so try to keep your cool. All right, let's please put your best foot forward. Wooden Bill's here. All right, let's pretend we're a professional channel.
To urgent care, and she went with them for a 3-hour visit and sat with them at urgent care this week. And she seems to do, the kids, do better with her, but they also do very well with the placement and listening to the placement. And we think that it would lessen the trauma to the children. So we're going to be moving the visits with the mom to the placement's home to kind of cut down on the trauma there, and then have mom go to the home and then gauge and see if that helps out with the children's behaviors.
Would Fostering Solutions still be supervising, or would supervision be left to the relative placement?
We would still supervise as well to assess
Okay.
what's needed.
And are any other services like I know sometimes we utilize like Orchard supportive visitation. Are there any services like that that are going to be utilized for Miss Miller?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Are there any other concerns that you have about this family, or that you need court assistance with outside of the case service plan?
Obviously, the domestic violence is a big part of this case. So I know that, it's of course a lot of hearsay of dad threatening mom, and both back and forth kind of, we're passing amongst friends, relatives, whatever. Also, dad has been driving by the children's placement and honking their horn and stopping his truck in front of the placement and causes craziness amongst the placement's home. She has a video of it, has sent me pictures and video of that occurring. So I don't know specifically what can be done, because I do think that a PPO has been put in place, but just the threatening behaviors by the paternal father at this point is concerning.
You have
No, I believe that's the person who has the children right now. Well, 3 of the children.
and they have a copy of the PPO?
I do not.
Okay. Have you spoke with Miss Miller about what she would like protection from, or if there's anything in our court that we can do to supplement the PPO?
She has not indicated anything extra.
Okay.
She asked, but just she continues to tell me about incidents that are occurring, but she has not asked for anything specific.
Do you believe that Ms. Miller is taking the appropriate steps to safeguard herself from engaging in additional cycles of domestic violence at this point in time?
I still have concern that she resides with the neighbors that are next door to where Mr. King is staying. So that's of concern, but short of that, I do believe that she is taking the appropriate steps.
Is there anything else as relates to Ms. Miller and the initial disposition that you would like the court to know?
No.
Okay. For Mr. King, we are here on a pretrial basis, which I know typically wouldn't involve you, but as it relates to his parenting time and how the children are doing with him, can you just briefly summarize what's happening?
So basically, the same thing that I discussed, how the children react with mom are escalated probably tenfold. On top of that,
so biting the staff, running around, yelling, screaming, can't be controlled. That's how they are with mom. They're tenfold when they're with dad.
we have Mr. King makes comments to our staff saying that, if you think I can't parent my kids, you can do it. And he sits back and just lets this stuff occur, which is where the biting happens. He just makes inappropriate comments, talks about the mom to the kids.
I can't listen to her. Listen to me. Sure, I can't do it.
So makes inappropriate comments to the kids and our office staff, and makes untrue or perceived like allegations of what's going on with the kids.
I know in your report you have an example of that. And for the benefit of anyone who did not read it carefully, can you just give us an example or two of what you're referring to? Dad making statements that are untrue or his perception is not based in.
Sure.
reality.
So the most telling, so yesterday we had an FTM with him, and he started off by the FTM by saying that he doesn't like how our agency is abusing his children, and in attempts to redirect the children to keep them in the room or to keep them safe, our staff members, had grabbed the children from behind, maybe grabbed them by the arms. And he said, trunk only, trunk only. And so then when she picks them up by the trunk and they touched her, and he said, oh, his private parts are touching you, that's inappropriate. So that kind of comments are what's going on during visits from dad. So on top of keeping the 3 children that are very active during visits, our staff is also having to deal with the constant scrutiny of dad. He also was videoing during the last visit. So.
And currently, what is his parenting time arrangement?
His parenting time arrangement is currently the same as mom's, where he visits twice a week, 1 hour.
Okay. And are you asking for a change in his parenting time today?
Yes. Due to yesterday, the FTM and our attempt to go over the parent visitation rules, and we couldn't even get past rule 2 of the expectations of behavior, and just due to the continued risk and trauma to the kids, we are recommending that visits with dad be suspended until the kids can have their trauma assessments completed and dad have his psychological evaluation.
Neither. I think this woman right here has the children right now. Mom and dad are, I can't even point to them. So they're like down here somewhere in this courtroom. They're like down here. You can hear dad the whole time because dad keeps talking. And Mr. Brooks is the one who said, I cannot listen to her and you at the same time. But he says more to the dads soon. Mr. Brooks does. Oh my gosh.
Completed so that we know how to best go forward with therapeutic visits.
I know that you've testified to some of the things that the children are experiencing during parenting time. And I know that it's really hard for all of us who aren't present to really understand how severe these behaviors are. But one of the the court must find that parenting time poses a risk of harm to the children's physical health or emotional or psychological well-being. Are there, can you elaborate on that, whether there is the physical risk or the harm to, a risk of harm to their physical health or psychological or emotional well-being? And if anything is happening after parenting time, that also supports that.
Yeah, so part of it, none of the kids had been really potty trained prior to coming into the home. And the placement had been working with the kids. And when I saw them after initial placement, she was very proud, and they were very proud because they were showing me the stickers that they were getting on the wall because they were using the toilet and no longer having to use pull-ups, and had making great progress. After the visit last Thursday night, Lincoln the 5-year-old came home and looked right at the placement as she was putting the 18-month-old to bed, and he pulled down his pants and he just pooped right next to the crib. So just right on the floor. I mean, after potty training had been going on for almost a month now, and he had been making progress. So that's just one example of what happens. And I have to stress that the behaviors are so different. When I first met the kids in the placement, they were they were excited to see me, a new person. But I mean, what occurs at parenting visits and what occurs at that placement, those kids are night and day. Like, it is, I can't even, we struggled writing the court report because it's so hard to articulate the behaviors that those kids exhibit. They're just wild. Yeah. And just attacking people, kicking, biting, punching, and that behavior does not happen at the placement.
Okay. And then as it relates, there's another child who's with a non-respondent mother at this point in time. Has there been any parenting time with that child for Mr. King?
There has not.
Okay, so there's another child with Mr. King's girlfriend or whatever, I guess, a non-ex other baby mama. Yes, Nancy, thank you. So they're going to talk about, even though I don't know how they're able to, because that mother's not here, non-respondent. They can't get a hold of the mother. They're going to talk about this child and make decisions about this child in this court right here.
Is that mother cooperative with the agency?
She initially refused. And again, kind of the same thing with him. When I first met him, a couple days into the case, he was adamant that he wanted to be back with his dad, be back with his siblings. He did not want to be with his mom. And then when I went and saw him on Wednesday, he was, again, just a different little boy. He had adjusted back to being in placement. Again, smiling, happy to see me, and then he sent me a text and said, I know that I can't be with my dad. I would like to see him. And I know it's, I can't be with him, but again, just a different kid. So initially, mom was very hesitant to allow him to attend parenting visits for the first 2 weeks, just because she wanted him to get adjusted. And then the visit, we did have one scheduled with them where he was supposed to come, but then the kids ended up getting sick. So that did not occur.
Are you asking parenting time to be suspended for that child as well, pending trauma assessment and psychological?
I do feel like that would be in the best interest for his well-being, yes.
And I believe that in your court report you indicated there have not been any sibling visits. Is that something that the agency is trying to work with the caregivers on?
Yes, of course. Yep.
Is there anything else that you feel the court should know about how the children are doing and how this case is progressing?
Again, I feel like it's well documented in the court report, but also, as Ms. Underwood said, there's definitely delays with the kids. As the placement said, they came in not really using utensils, using their hands to eat, and they're just very delayed. I've seen it. Our GAL has seen it. The pediatrician has seen it. The The fact, I think that I had to read the report from the pediatrician because he applied fluoride, and I've never heard of a pediatrician applying fluoride before, but he was so concerned for the children's dental health that he took it upon himself to apply fluoride in a pediatrician's office. So just the neglect of the kids are, yeah.
And during this, I guess, between the removal on November 22nd and today, there was, I believe, a report indicates that Mr. King was incarcerated for another instance of domestic violence against Ms. Miller. Is that accurate?
I believe it was the incident dating back to what caused the actual removal of the kids, where he allegedly had thrown a can of green beans at her.
Okay, so it wasn't it wasn't a new placement or a new instance.
Correct.
Okay. And today are you asking the court to consider entering an order prohibiting any harassing behaviors from Mr. King to agency staff and placement?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. With it, I have no further questions of Ms. Brinker and move to admit the court report with the attachments that are included. Thank you.
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
Yeah, the only
It was probably those fancy cut green beans. Yep, those fancy cut ones. I would have threw it at her too.
attachments I see really are the case services plans. Is that accurate?
yes.
Okay.
Well,
I
there's, I was going to say, there's just at the end of the end of the packet is the parenting expectation.
Yes, I see that. Thank you. There was at the preliminary hearing an indication of Native American heritage. Are you aware of any updates on that piece?
I have not received any updates currently. The CPS worker is here though. I
Okay.
could probably speak to that. So.
Thank you so much. Were there any instances where you had to use the language granted in the prelim order that allowed the termination of parenting time based on aggressive
Brenda.
or other dangerous behaviors during parenting time?
The staff thought that it would possibly escalate the behaviors with dad, so they chose to not utilize that due to the behavior that we were already seeing from him. So I thought that it was better to just work through the
Okay, thank you for that insight. Questions, Mr. McFarland?
My understanding is that the estimate charged a felony for a third offense domestic violence and has a preliminary hearing scheduled. Am I correct?
I am not completely current with his most recent court criminal proceedings.
My client has advised me that the PPO is actually being filed today. Is it our presumption you would like a copy of the
Yes,
PPO?
please.
Would in addition you like to have this court order that father not be around mother, not be around placement, not have any contact, therefore we can utilize contempt of court proceedings if necessary?
Correct, please, thank you.
How?
Mr. King, you're gonna need to keep it down, please. Your volume is at the point where it's
I
somewhat.
can't hear, sorry.
Okay, well,
Shut up. That's what she said.
we just need to make sure that I can hear and that the other attorneys can hear as well.
Mr. Brooks just told him to shut up. Shut up. That's what she said.
Expansion of my client's parenting time. What are we looking at to expand it? And if expanded, what would that look like?
Yeah, I think we already kind of expanded it a little bit this week with the extra sick visits and the doctor's appointments. But yeah, I think we.
So apparently he's driving past the placement's house and things like that. That he's harassing the placement, her. He's harassing her. So the TPO is, the mother already has one. She's getting another one. So he's not allowed to go near the mother. Now he's not allowed to go near placement. And he's not allowed to go near the the workers because he harasses the workers. I think they'll explain it more, but that's what's going on. He's not allowed to go near anybody. He's getting TPOs out against everybody involved. He's the person that's not allowed to go near them, though.
You feel comfortable with supported parenting, that as long as she is engaging and moving forward with filing for the domestic violence, the PPO, and engaging in the parenting classes and recommendations, we're comfortable with adding on parenting time.
My clients advised me that she's attempted to seek residency at the shelter or at the Captain Cobb shelter, but they are full. Is there some maybe active assistance the agency could give her to assist her in relocating?
I believe that we have also attempted to contact the shelter and are looking at other options for her as well. Yes, we did discuss that during the FTM.
Lastly, where should her principal focus be right now? If we were to, because she has a full plate of things that she has to do, where should her principal focus be?
I definitely,
I
do feel like she has taken the right step with her mental health, and I think that that's probably the principal focus at this time.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Questions, Mr. Brooks?
Are these special needs children or any one of them special needs?
I believe Lincoln, the oldest, is, although I have not received any of the documentation for that yet.
And you speak a little.
Oh, I'm sorry. I believe the oldest child does have an autism diagnosis.
Autism?
I believe I have not seen documentation, and that is what was reported.
And the other ones?
There are no diagnoses on file.
How old are they?
18 months and 4 and 5.
They're extremely young for trying to do any kind of evaluation, aren't they?
Trauma assessments, and early on assessments are definitely tailored to younger children.
I believe, if I can summarize your impression, that these children are unsocialized. Is that a fair
That would be a very fair summary, yes.
And since they have been, are they in foster homes or are they in relative care?
They are in a relative placement.
Have there been improvements?
Yes.
Now you mentioned something about aggression by my client towards caseworkers. Has that been your experience? Has my client been aggressive towards you?
I have not dealt with your client on one-on-one. It has been our staff members at the agency.
Have you heard of other ones that he has claimed to have been aggressive towards them?
Yes,
In what way?
verbally.
In other words, he doesn't agree with what they're saying to him.
Yes.
I was at that family team meeting yesterday, and I saw what you're talking about. But when we say he was aggressive, would argumentative been just as accurate a statement?
I feel he's very accusatory, and his accusations are probably not very realistic. So.
And he has a psychological evaluation scheduled, or where are we at? Are we even at that stage where the court can order that for him?
We, I believe, are going to be at that stage, or I believe that is what today is that he will be ordered into a evaluation.
Okay.
We are currently seeking a provider.
I'm a little confused because I think the parents are in different stages of their.
They are. Technically, today is a pre-trial for your client, Mr. Brooks. There's a bench trial scheduled in January.
Yeah, that's Mr. Brooks. That's the dad's attorney.
All right. That makes it clear.
That one's the best, I think. Belligerent.
does my client have a home he could take his children to?
He does not.
Do you know, to your knowledge, whether or not he's working on that?
I believe he has reported that he's working on tearing down a trailer for them to have a place to live. I'm not sure, he has not indicated where, but it's something with his mother, I think, or on his mother's property.
Tearing down a trailer?
Or moving a trailer. Yeah,
But you haven't seen it or anything?
no.
Do you know where my client lives?
I believe in Morenci.
I mean, does he have a place that he stays?
I believe that it's his mother's home that is condemned, where the children were removed.
Okay. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Ms. Underwood?
Do you believe that, I believe Dustin Jr. has a cell phone. I am aware I've had some contact with him on that. Do you believe that phone contact with Mr. King and Dustin Smith and Jr. is appropriate?
I do not.
Are there any other issues with either parent that have not specifically been addressed that are concerning in your experience?
I think everything's been covered.
You indicated that early on referrals have been made or they will be made.
Yes, I believe they're scheduled for January.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
All right. There was also at the last juncture, part of the order was that both parents were to be referred for parenting time assessment and a Tranquil Studios evaluation. Can you tell me if there's any progress on those pieces?
I know that we have reached out to Tranquil Studios. I believe there was an issue with funding, I think.
All right. What about a parenting time assessment? Is that something that's been explored or considered?
Through an agency, so through separate from us.
Just in general, whether it's through you or maybe the CPS worker?
Yeah, absolutely. We can, I mean, I feel like we've done that over the past month, kind of assessed the needs, but the Orchards referral will definitely cover the parenting time and focus on what specific tasks need to be completed.
Is there a trauma assessment on the horizon for the children?
Yes.
All right. That typically has bonding assessment. Would you be willing to ask that provider also to weigh in on parenting time?
Yes, absolutely.
Questions? Redirect, Ms. Thomas.
Not at this time, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any more questions, Mr. McFarland?
Just briefly, you are in possession of my client's PPO against father, correct?
I think she said no.
No, that was the PPO from the foster parents.
Oh,
Oh, I don't know that I have that.
So you would like her to present that to the agency also.
Please, thank you.
Mine, so I guess, are you aware that there's been some violations of this current PPO alleged by my client?
Yes,
She's seeking a violation of the PPO here. You're aware of that?
correct, yes.
Okay.
She does communicate well and let me know when there's incidences that have occurred.
She'll present that to you then. Nothing further.
Mr. Brooks, any further questions?
no, Your Honor.
Ms. Underwood?
No, thank you.
All right. Thank you for your testimony. We return to your seat. Any other witnesses, Ms. Thomas?
Not for purposes of the initial disposition, Your Honor.
Any testimony today from anyone
This is not really
regarding the
time,
initial
but
disposition, Mr. McFarland?
just-
Yeah, perhaps it would speed this up. Is there a no contact order between the parents right now?
Yes.
I'd like to call my client.
Very well.
Before we do, Your Honor, my client has on several occasions here this morning asked to talk to me. May I have a very short recess.
You may, Mr. Brooks. It's technically the initial disposition as it relates to Ms. Kirsten Miller. Would you like us to recess, or would you like to simply step out with your client?
I can step out with my client, that's fine.
Very well. Thank you so much. Go ahead. All right, Ms. Kirsten Miller, come on up to our witness stand.
This is the mother.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Or the step.
How would you like me to address you today?
Kirsten.
Okay. You've indicated to me that father's had some contact with you, is that correct?
Through a third party.
What has that contact been?
It's been through my friend's niece.
What was the content of that contact?
Asking who I've been with. He thinks I'm having sexual intercourses with other people, that I'm on drugs, that I'm just not doing what I'm supposed to do, which I'm doing, as you heard from the foster worker, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
And have you shared these texts with the workers?
I just filed the...
No, Mr. Brooks is his lawyer, so they should step out together.
I just brought the pictures up this morning to... I meant to take them to the second floor, but I took them to the third floor, and they were supposed to bring them here.
Okay. Do you have those on your phone?
No, they're on my friend's phone, but they should have brought them to her because she's the judge on.
Well, you're talking, you presented the documents upstairs to the clerk's office. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
And you present a copy to the worker and to myself, so we have
Yeah, I
those.
can. I'll just have to go home and get them. Okay.
And you've already contacted police on that?
Yes, they said you have to record everything.
Oh, do they have a copy of the text messages?
Yes, we sent them to them.
So you say they're upstairs right now?
Yeah, they were supposed to bring them down here some point today.
Can I inquire if the court has a copy of those that may have been improperly filed?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor. I would like maybe take a 5-minute break and get those, since you would like to hold father in contempt for violating the court orders. I'd at least like to present that to the court. I just discovered their existence.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
4177.
All right, Ms. Key, you have been reminded, but I'm just going to remind you on the record, you remain under oath. Mr. McFarland?
Just to let the court know, I did locate the documents which were filed upstairs. I am not going to use them today, and I have no further questions.
Thank you. Does anyone else have questions for this witness?
In Georgia, I see cases every day of people getting caught bringing stuff to jail. Cigarettes, drugs, cell phones, and you get 2 years. I'm sorry, you don't get 2 years. The recommended for that crime is 2 years in jail. So if you bring a cigarette to a jail, that's 2 years. The recommended is you go to jail for 2 years. If you bring cocaine, the recommended is 2 years. If you bring a cell phone, the recommended is 2 years. So it doesn't matter what you bring. If you bring that burger, if they brought burger in, 2 years is the recommendation in Georgia. I know that is Texas. I don't know what the recommended is for Texas, but I see these cases every day. They do everything. They try to drop them by drones. They cut the fence. They try to dig under the fence, and they get caught because I have the cases. They get caught all the time. The one guy, I was gonna show it. I didn't. They want to charge him. All right, never mind. I'm going to show this one tomorrow. I'm going to show it, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Beginning with Ms. Thomas?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Brooks?
No.
Ms. Underwood? Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. You may return to your seats. Anyone else you'd like us to hear from for purposes of the initial disposition, Mr. McFarland?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Underwood?
have no witnesses.
Very well. As it relates to comments that you may have on the initial disposition, Ms. Thomas, and I think we do need to address the Native American heritage piece.
All right, there's the dad. This is Mr. Brooks, guys. This is the mother's attorney. The mother is beside him. We can't see her.
For not only Ms., for both parents, really.
Yes, Your Honor. I believe that it was Ms. Miller who indicated some Cherokee heritage. I believe that the ICWA documentation has been sent out. I do not have return green cards at this point in time, but it is something that the department is going to be following up on. If you would like testimony from, I believe Ms. Kelly or Mr. Farian would be the individuals to ask. But based on my review of my file, I am confident that's where we are.
All right, I just need copies of the inquiries, the certified mail receipts, and any green cards or letters that are returned. So it's just, I'd love to have them as soon as possible so I can stop asking.
Okay. Yes, Your Honor. I know that we are still in the pretrial phase for Mr. King, but Judge, I think we need some court oversight here in a few regards. So one, I guess as relates to the initial disposition for mom, we are asking the court to adopt that case service plan and enter it as an order today. We are also asking the court to order that the children undergo a trauma and bonding assessment. Per policy, the children need a screening level, the trauma screening level of 11 or higher. And
I don't know what that means, trauma screening level of 11 or higher, but sounds high. She's always in her bedroom. Every time I see her, she's in her bedroom.
They also need to be engaged in services that are not working. Given that the children are young, they don't have a history of services. We just need that order to ensure we can get that referral done. I believe that the bonding assessment would be sufficient to address recommendations on parenting time. At this time, we are asking the court to suspend Mr. King's parenting time. I believe that his behavior, and I frankly have recommended to the agency to stop parenting time. There was some concern about the language in our prior order, whether it meant that each parenting time could be suspended or that all parenting time could be suspended based on any dangerous or concerning behaviors. But I am asking at this point that all parenting time with Mr. King be suspended for all of the children, that no contact be there pending the return from the trauma assessment and bonding assessment. We do understand that obviously during the bonding assessment, there would have to be contact. I think that it would be prudent of our team to confer with the team providing the assessment to ensure safety measures are put in place, whether that's having law enforcement on a standby or additional hands there to assist with the children. Furthermore, we are asking, I know that both Ms. Miller and placement are dealing with PPOs in their own regard, but with this court having jurisdiction over the children through Ms. Miller and the removal, we are asking the court to also make that part of the order that there's no contact period, that dad is not to harass, contact, or in any way threaten the children, the caregivers, or mom. And we would also ask the court to order dad to be respectful to the workers. I think frankly, their job description doesn't include having to deal with such accusatory and argumentative behavior from parents. That is not our caseworkers' fault that the children are in care, rather the parents, and is the responsibility to address those conditions that cause the children to come into care. And there should be some appreciation for the people who are caring for their children and making sure that they have a warm, safe home.
This is the dad right here beside Mr. Brooks. This is Mr. Brooks, and this is the dad.
Food, clothing, and their medical needs are met. As relates to the pretrial, Your Honor, and I think that this is also relevant moving forward in the case, we're asking the court to additionally enter a protective order that would allow us to bifurcate court reports and to eliminate the contact information for Miss Miller. I think given the severity of the domestic violence that this family has endured.
Dad just turned his head to look at all of us, and it was not okay. I did not like that. Wait a second. Is he a ginger? Fozzie? Look right there. Doesn't he look like he has red hair? He doesn't.
The behaviors by Mr. King, that is also prudent. And if this court is so inclined, I know that there are some concerns about whether some of the behaviors that are very concerning from Mr. King are induced by any drugs or substances. We would ask the court to order him to undergo a drug screen today before leaving. Thank you.
Please stop with the behaviors, Mr. King. They are disruptive to our proceedings. Thank you. Comments in closing, Mr. McFarland.
We support the position of the agency, and my client wants to be ordered into the case service plan.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks, any comments today?
Well, this is not technically about my client, but there's been a lot of ground covered here, all negative about my client, and I want to cut off his.
Judge, everything everybody said today was negative about my client. It's not fair. She's not good either.
Parenting time. And my only response to that is I have at the family team meeting witnessed the lack of effective communication between my client and the department. And I appreciate, and I've explained to my client how irritating it is, his habit of absolutely talking over people at every sentence they say. I get that.
He's talking about his client. How irritating his client is.
I have the same reaction. However, that is not the same as talking to kids who are the age of his kids. And he is not arguing, I'm sure, with his children, particularly about anything involving this case. Dad, I think we should be in foster care, and I think they're not saying stuff like that. They're not saying that Dad's got issues of his own. And I don't think there's been any evidence of him threatening.
She has the children right now. She has the 3 children right now.
His children in visitations, either verbally, certainly not physically. And I don't agree that he should be cut off from his visitations. Is he irritating? He is. He knows he's irritating. And I've told him that in plain English. But I don't think it has anything whatsoever to do with his kids. It has to do with his inner relationships with the outside world. And his personality can be grating. I admit it. He'll admit it. But he's not dangerous to his kids.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Ms. Underwood?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. I would echo the words of Ms. Thomas in general. I believe that it would be appropriate at this time to request drug testing today. I would say it's reasonable for both parents to be tested. I don't think it would hurt anything, and I think it would provide some insight as to what is happening in this case. With respect to parenting time for Mr. King, I think it is appropriate to suspend visits based on his conduct, not only today in the courtroom, but also in the family team meeting. I was very clear yesterday that we couldn't get anywhere during that meeting because of his behavior and his lack of consideration for others. And it absolutely does harm the children if he's expressing and displaying those behaviors toward others in the presence of his kids. There has also been testimony that Mr. King has been inappropriate with the things that he is saying, talking about the case, and not respecting the parenting time guidelines that had been attempted to be relayed to him at family team meetings. There's a lack of accountability on his part. Mr. King doesn't believe he did anything wrong and that it's everybody else's fault. And I think that it's clear that, again, these children need a safe place that is free from his inappropriate behaviors until they can be addressed. So I believe that parenting time, it's appropriate that parenting time for dad be suspended until a psych evaluation happened for him and also bonding and trauma assessments happen with the kids. I also believe it's appropriate with respect to the oldest child that those visits be, if they are to be ordered, that they be supervised very closely and that there not be any discussion with respect to this court case or anything happening during that time. I would also ask that phone contact be eliminated or closely monitored if it were to be ordered. I had spoken with the placement, and there have been at least 2 instances where Mr. King has driven by her home and either revved the engine very loud and then peeled off, or went by honking the horn and just disrupting the children in the placement. I believe it would be appropriate for a no contact order to be entered in this case, wherein Mr. King's not to make any contact or follow or even drive by the home of the placement in order to protect the children and the placement who is opening her home, or they're opening their home to these children and helping provide stability and consistency for them during this traumatic time. Thank you.
The court finds all interested parties are given notice for purposes of the pretrial as it relates to Mr. King's case and the initial disposition as it relates to Ms. King's case. As it relates to the disposition, the court's reviewed the case services plan. I do find it appropriate and it will be part of today's court order. The no contact between the parents will remain in place. We'll look for Ms. Miller to continue to engage with her parenting time and the needs of the children and her case services as she has been, as also to continue looking for housing and some other indications of stability that would alleviate the risk of harm associated with returning the children to her care. There's also clearly a need for some parenting education, observation of the bond between the mother and the child, trauma assessments to identify any additional limitations that children may have, as well as additional services that may be useful to them based on the information that I've read in the court report and listened to on the record today. The children were feral, to be frank. They were unfamiliar with bathing showers, eating food with silverware. As Ms. Brinker described, also the placement described in the report, kicking it, biting, uncontrollable behavior. Use of silverware was foreign to them as well. Potty training is an issue. So these children have clearly demonstrated very obvious indications that they have been raised outside like animals, frankly, and it has caused them a lot of real problems that are going to continue to be real problems as they move into the next phase of life, which is a formal education setting. It's imperative that Ms. Miller show us that she is willing to dedicate the next 6 to 9 months to finding a stable environment and learning how to raise her children in a way that will allow them to be successful in our culture and in our climate, frankly. It's snowing this morning on my way in, right? There's a lot of traffic out there. There are very practical implications for a lot of the things that we've observed here, and it's been obviously very difficult for caseworkers, for the placement, and for everyone who's tried to support this family. I have 2 additional bailiffs in the courtroom this morning based on the dynamics that are being observed in the courtroom this morning. So I can only imagine that the behavior and what we're seeing, what the caseworkers are seeing, during parenting time, Ms. Brinker's only been able to describe, I'm sure, the tip of the iceberg as it relates to that. I want to express appreciation for the placement in supporting the children and in sharing with the court and the attorneys what's been happening with them at home so that we can best support you as you try to support the children. I'm going to allow the agency to have discretion as it relates to parenting time for Ms. Miller. So what that means is you are free to utilize your twice weekly parenting time if you need to, but you are also free to reduce that if the children's behaviors if they can't handle it, frankly. And they're clearly communicating with their behavior. And they need to be able to have some time to stabilize. Mom needs some time to work on her case services and to educate herself. She's heavily reliant clearly on the supports at parenting time, and understandably so. These children are very much, and they have very much associated we'll call them feral behaviors with their parents, because they've been isolated, it seems, from many aspects of society. So it doesn't surprise me, frankly, that we're seeing a lot of these behaviors come out the second they see their parents, and that because of that isolation that they have with their parents, and now they're in a completely different environment, that they're able to adapt there. It also speaks to the resiliency of the children and the hope that we can have that they will be able to learn how to function appropriately and keep themselves out of many of the issues that their parents are currently experiencing. That, of course, includes the domestic violence indicators present in the case as well. There are also indications in the court report of use of drugs. So at a minimum, we have one of the children reporting that dad at least blew smoke in his face in order to help him get to sleep at night. I am going to ask both parents to drug test today before they leave. We'll reach out to the pretrial services officer upstairs for purposes of Mr. King's drug test, and
18 months, 4 and 5.
we'll ask the case services worker to administer the test as it relates to Ms. Miller, because there simply are, I want to make sure that we are looking at all angles in this case, and there are indications that drugs may be a part of the dynamic, and it wouldn't certainly be surprising in a dynamic where you have domestic violence and many other regular hardships to have the use of substances as a way to cope with that, to be perfectly frank. So both parents will be asked to order 2 drug tests today. That's also to ensure that we have safety measures in place around that piece. Obviously, drugs, at a minimum, in layman's words, reduce the inhibitions that people may have in making decisions. And where you have these types of dynamics, where you have aggression, domestic violence, we don't need that kind of risk, running that kind of risk amplified by use of substances, whether it's in the courthouse or during visitation or anywhere else for that matter. So for those reasons, both parents are ordered to drug test today. As it relates to the pretrial, certain aspects, obviously, of today's court order are going to apply to Mr. King. His bench trial is scheduled for January 17th, 2020, at 3 p.m. That will remain as scheduled. I'll expect you to be ready to proceed on that date and time for purposes of determining jurisdiction. In the meantime, based on many of the observations already made, I am granting the department's request to suspend parenting time for Dustin King until the bench trial. In the meantime, I would like to see a referral made for a trauma assessment, frankly, for all 4 children. That includes the oldest child that is placed with his mother. I'd like to see the dynamic between him and his father as well for purposes of the bonding assessment. So I will need Mr. King to be involved with the trauma assessments as it relates to his children so that they can assess that bond and what that looks like appropriately. And I'll ask you to also ask those parents to weigh in on any parenting time recommendations as they may feel comfortable doing. If they're not, then I'll ask you to find someone else to do a parenting time recommendation. And you find that, again, the behaviors that the children are exhibiting, their need for stability, considering their circumstances where they come
Now he has to be late 5 because there's a 4-year-old.
from, and coupled with fathers' continuously disruptive behavior during parenting time, contributes to a real high risk for these children, a risk that clearly mirrors the risk of harm associated with returning the children to the care of a father at this time. Both parents continue to remain without housing, employment, or many of the other services that are many of the other items that contribute to a safe and stable environment. And then, of course, you have all of the parenting time, the parenting dynamics or the lack of skills in those areas, as well as the very clear indications of domestic violence, aggression, and other issues in the relationship. All of those risks remain. The children are in the least restrictive placements as of today, and they will remain there pending further court hearings. I will also grant the request of the department to issue an order indicating that Dustin King is prohibited completely from contacting or circling or any other means of harassment to the foster care placement, and I will take violations of that very seriously. Both parents will be subject to no contact, meaning no contact from mom or dad to the other one. That will also be something that...
That's the least of the word. Well, it's one of them. You have to know your address. You have to know how to spell your name and eat. You have to know how to eat food.
Will be obviously have some consequences if that's violated, and I'll trust our service providers to bring that to my attention as necessary. I am also granting the department's request to isolate reports that may be provided during the course of services that are administered as it relates to Ms. Kirsten Miller. There's a pending admitted third offense domestic violence case here, which is a felony case. Very well documented instance of domestic violence dynamics here, power and control dynamics that are happening. So there's no question that we need to isolate reports that one parent could use against the other or vice versa. So that will be something we'll trust our case worker to ensure happens. Of course, the attorneys would be able to review those, but certainly not pass those along to either client. We'll have our next review and permanency planning hearing, frankly, for Ms. Miller on March 10th, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. Again, the first regular review and permanency planning hearing for Ms. Miller will be March 10th, 2025 at 1:30 p.m. Did I address all of the things that you asked me to address, Ms. Thomas? You have a rather long list.
I did, Your Honor, and I really appreciate you taking the time to go through that again. I mean, it may be redundant, but just ensuring that Father understands the need to be respectful towards the agency and the caseworkers. I know that oftentimes our caseworkers don't feel that they have any remedy if parents are rude, argumentative, accusatory. And so I just would ask for either the order to reflect that or some guidance from the court about how the workers can feel more protected, I guess.
If it's a danger to meet with Mr. King or it's counterproductive, then really this is going to come back to you, Mr. King, because right now the goal is reunification.
Correct.
And I understand that we don't have an adjudication yet, and you're not ordered to cooperate with anything. But you're going to make it a lot harder for me to understand that it's appropriate for me to return the children to your care if you can't even conduct yourself like an adult with other adults in the room.
Just been trying to let it.
I don't need to hear anything from you right now, Mr. King. I think that's part of the problem that you have. You seem to have an opinion on things at all times, and it would be very beneficial to you if you could sit back and perhaps just listen at times. I wish you the best of luck in doing that moving forward. Unless there's any other questions, that's all for today.
Will the order be emailed or should my client wait?
It'll be ready in a few minutes.
That's where she cut the stream. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. I know it's a short one, but we were so busy at work. We were wait list all night, and I was not ready mentally or physically to run around like that all night. I got home and I crashed. I just crashed. So this is what I have for today. No, we can't do OJ because I have a double today, and we're not doing OJ tomorrow. I have a double tomorrow. So I shall see you for tomorrow's live. Thank you so much for coming out. Fozzie, thank you so much for waking me up. I really appreciate it. You can wake me up at 4:30. You can wake me up at 4. You can go earlier. So everybody doesn't have to wait for me, but hopefully I can just learn to. The alarms were set, 2 alarms. I might just didn't hear them. I was just dead asleep, and I was having the loveliest dream. But anyway, Fozzie ruined that. Thanks a lot, Fozzie. I was having the loveliest dream. All right, guys, I'm gonna go down to Georgia for tomorrow. So we're going to have some nice, slow talking Georgia stream tomorrow. Thanks for coming. See you guys soon.
just right. Even when my world turns gray, with a giggle, she lights the way. Her eyes near a sky so blue. In her jokes there's a truth so true. With each string she brings the light, turns dark days into bright. Kathy's laugh cuts through the gloom, eyes blue like a summer's bloom. Her humor dark and twisted charm, in a wake there's no alarm. Streaming tales late into the night, her laughter feels just right. Even when my world turns gray, with a giggle she lights the way. Kathy's laugh cuts through the gloom, eyes blue like a summer's bloom. Her humor dark and twisted charm, in a way there's no